Lead, inspire, motivate, and empower. Welcome to Lead with DX, your guide to digital transformation in a complex world. Here are your hosts, Lars and Wasantha Wirakuni, the founders of Tech One Global and Enadoc.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, Wasantha.
Hello, Lars.
How are you?
Good afternoon, Lars.
Sorry?
Sunshine here.
Oh, okay. We have heavy rains here today. So today we have a guest. We have a guest with us. Who is our guest today?
I think you should introduce.
Oh, Cellini, you should introduce yourself. We have a guest today with us. And we thought about, actually what came around was that I had a nice interview with some students this last weekend, and they asked me what was the best thing that came for your company out of the pandemic. And I said, well, I really think that one of the very good products, good new things we have done during the pandemic was our Enadoc sign, which will soon be launched as Enadoc EVIA sign. And we realized that during the pandemic, a lot of people are having problems getting their documents signed because they physically have to move them from A to B. And many of the existing document signing solutions does not have a connected content management system or document management system. That means that you sign something, and where does that thing that you sign end up? So we started our development on Enadoc Sign, and it has evolved into I would say much more than a minimum viable product now. It's a pretty cool product, and we thought that we wanted to discuss signing and digital signing today, and we would bring in our legal department head, the head of our legal department, Cellini, who is, I think, a one-man, one-woman show. So she's handling all the legal interactions at Tech One Global, and get her view on digital signatures and how they are positioned. So welcome, Cellini.
Hi, bosses. Thank you for having me.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah, bosses. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now. Yes, okay, so you are
thanks.
live. So welcome to our little podcast. So I could start out by asking you a question. When you have first started to use this feature of Enadoc, I'm not asking you to give a review or feedback on the product itself, but what did you think about the concept of digital signing, and how do you feel about it today when you have done more research, you have used the product more, and maybe got a better understanding of where it is? What do you think about this whole digital signing?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. When I first joined the company, this is my first technology solutions company. So for lawyers, technology is bit difficult, because it's not something that we have studied. So now we see in the modern world, businesses increasingly being conducted electronically. And law is also being dragged along, whether law is ready or not. And the fascinating fact about law and technology is, technology is always ahead of law. Law is catching up. Law needs to catch up, but technology is always ahead of law. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, when I first joined Tech One Global, when I was first using Enadoc, I was actually what was interesting in the platform was how easy it was. And as lawyers, we meet with customers, our companies, and most of the time, especially when it comes to immovable properties, you sign a deed of transfer, you have to execute deed of gifts. So all these requires physical signatures, and now COVID-19 pandemic was very expected for all of us. And signing documents physically was such a big challenge. And when I first started using EnterDoc for our internal work, it was really easy. It's just, you don't even need to print the document. You just have to sign it. You can read it online and you can log into the system, and you can very easily sign the document and send it to the other person. So it was very convenient, and I think the COVID-19 pandemic made me realize how easy it is for the users and how important it is for all of us to be very thorough with digital signatures.
But what do you think about the legal part of this? I mean, when you were first asked, okay, here's a tool that we use in our company, what went through your mind in terms of at least maybe professional curiosity, or did you do any research thinking they're doing this? Is this really legal to use a digital signature? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was also very curious to know the legality behind it. And I did my research, and now electronic signature, you can simply say it's the electronic version of a handwritten signature. But digital signatures are more advanced than that. It uses a public key, and I'm not a tech person, but from our development team, I understand. I have been reading about it. So it's more advanced. And when you look at the law, now, of course, we have to look at the international law first. In domestic context in countries, laws may differ from country to country. But with the development of technology, now there is no international legislation, but you can recognize United Nations as the international legislation. So if you look at United Nations has also kind of attempted to provide guidance on electronic signatures. And United Nations Commission on International Trade Law has also provided in its model law on electronic commerce that electronic signatures are and has the same legal validity as an ink signature, provided that it fulfills certain conditions. And if you look at the laws on other countries, although laws may differ from country to country, almost all jurisdictions have recognized digital signatures as valid signatures. But the most important thing is, in order for a digital signature to be valid, you need to see whether this digital signature fulfills certain conditions. I think that is the most important part. There are so many platforms now providing digital signatures, but we need to understand the legality behind it. And in order for a digital signature to be valid and admissible as evidence in a court of law, we have to see whether this platform fulfills these conditions. When I sign a document digitally, are these conditions fulfilled?
Okay, so that's interesting. You mentioned something, Wasantha. Maybe I can bring you in here, because Talini said she's not the technology person, and I'm also not really the technology person. What is that digital certificate that she was mentioning?
So, Lars, I heard two things. She's using very freely two words, electronic signature and digital signature. Of course, she also was trying to define the two. I think we should take a minute to understand the difference between the two, and then I think then we can talk about it, right? So, the electronic signatures, actually, many governments, as she mentioned, many governments have even accepted the electronic, signatures also in court of law, but digital signatures go beyond the original electronic signature concept. It can even tell whether document has been tampered after the digitally been signed or sealed. So in electronic signature, what people do is you simply put a ink signature on a document, and using some sort of a tool. Instead of signing on the paper. But whereas in the digital signature, what you do, you take this, you place the signature and you create a code, or you do an encryption. So where we can verify that encrypted document against a common platform anywhere, using normally a browser or maybe a digital reading platform like Adobe Reader, to check whether this particular document that you received as signed by someone is been tampered after the final signing. So that means you need to have an internet connection to do that. Right, and that means you need to be able to connect to the signature verification environment, but that is quite secure compared to normal electronic signature. But many organizations, many countries and organizations still use also electronic signature as part of their signing environment. But we offer both in on this one, in this. So is that what you're trying to understand? In our case, we use the global sign, which is the global authentication platform for digital signatures. We use them to do the verification. And
if you think back, digital signatures have really existed for quite a long time, because if you will have a bank account, banks have been asking to sign this fax waiver. That means that you can send your banking instructions by fax. That means they are not really requiring you a original wet signature. If you fax them your instructions, they will execute those instructions. And of course, that is, if you compare to what we have today, much more simple and quite easy to fraud. To cut and paste somebody's signature on a document and send it by fax is quite even a kindergarten student can do. So what we have now is much more complex, because first of all, you need to log in. You need to be authenticated to log into the system. Then you need, we have also in our system, we have this one-time password to ensure that, the person who's signing is really the person who's supposed to sign. And we have then this key that is built into the document once a document is released, that the person who receives the document can verify that this document was not altered in the process. So that means that if you release a statement, you can make sure that statement is true because it was not altered. As soon as you will edit that PDF, that key will disappear. You cannot save it again and keep the key. So so that's quite important in that sense. So I have also seen that a lot of the signing products in the market, they don't even require you to sign with your own signature. You can simply type your name using some font, because the fact that you are logged in using your credentials is enough for them to recognize that you are the one who signs. So Tilini, where do you think this is going? I mean, what's the next step in this around legalizing or adapting digital signatures? Now, you said the law is always behind, but in this case, it sounds like you're saying the law is not really behind. The law is kind of there, but what's next in terms of the law catching up with it? What do you think should be the next step in that framework?
Yeah, versus now, I actually think, as I mentioned earlier, there are so many platforms providing digital signatures. But when it comes to international trade, now we at Tech1 Global, my day-to-day work includes reviewing agreements. So I get agreements from various countries, and their governing law is different. Our governing law is different, and we at Tech1 Global, we have our branches in few countries. So the most important thing for the countries is, irrespective of the legal system, whether it's common law or civil law, the countries needs to come together, and come to an agreement with these digital signatures. Because I may put my digital signature from Sri Lanka, but I may be sending that agreement to another country. So the countries needs to come together, and there should be standards internationally and domestically domestically, in the domestic legislature also, we need to have laws and standards on digital signatures. If a digital signature needs to be valid, these conditions needs to be fulfilled, because it is very easy for someone to sign, as Boss Vasant said, it's very easy for someone to sign electronically, but the most important thing is enforceability of that document. You should, for an example, we'll take an agreement. So if you sign an agreement, you expect, if there is a breach of any terms of an agreement, you want your agreement to be taken to a court of law, or if it is alternative dispute resolution, to an arbitral tribunal, and you want to enforce that agreement, right? That is the most important thing. So enforceability requires a valid signature. So I see in future these there are so many platforms, and these platforms needs to be imposed with certain standards. I mean, I was actually signing a document the other day, and when I opened the document, boss, in Enadoc, I got an OTP for my email. So then I know anyone can steal my username and password, right? But it is not possible for the person having the username and password to sign the document. They should enter the OTP as well. So it is actually Thilini who signs the document. So that is one part of it. So those are very important. I think the conditions are very important. So laws should be developed to that stage.
So what I have seen when I've done some research on this is that the places that it's digital signatures are still not allowed are the places where you need to have like a notarization or a third party notarizing the documents, right? So isn't the next step really to have kind of a digital notarization? I mean, to a certain extent, of course, we use now this global sign, but it doesn't really it doesn't authenticate the parties and the witnesses themselves. It authenticates that the document was not changed. But where do you see this going, Vasantha? You have any ideas on this, or yeah?
Yeah. I think yes, Lars. I want to say something. I think if you really go and look at the legislations, of many countries, they are all like in Sri Lanka. This in 2006 we had Electronic Transaction Act, right? And this was to support one which we have released in 2001, and many countries in Asia also having the same similar situation. But adoption is the challenge, in my opinion. Why the adoption is a challenge? Number one, it is so far it was quite complicated. To buy a digital signature product and integrating it into to your work process, because most of these organizations or notaries or the other legal establishments, they are not, as Thilini said, they are not tech savvy. Right, so they are late to adapt, and on the same time, there's another challenge. They are original documents. What they are creating. They are printing on this large A4 size, legal size papers, which are double sided because of their certain, things, and sometimes they review these documents manually, so they have to print it, and then how do you place a digital signature on this, and how do you engage them into a workflow of a digital signature? So these are the challenges that the adoption was not happening. But I think pandemic, has given a lot of innovation and I think brought a lot of innovation that help this to bridge this gap. So tomorrow, these organizations or these individuals can easily engage. If you have little knowledge about, maybe how to use a smartphone, that would be good enough to start using this kind of digital signing products today. So I think that is where the transformation will happen. That is where the things will. It is not that the law was not there. I think law has been there. And then obviously, if nobody is using, then what is the purpose of what is the purpose of having that? So you cannot verify against, right? I think it's the adoption. in my opinion, Lars. Yeah.
So I have a bit of a closing remark, but before that, I just wanted to ask you, Telini, any other things you wanted to comment or any on this discussion before we close?
Yeah, but I think as Boss Vasantha said, the implementation, adoption is such a big challenge, and especially in developing countries, I think it needs to start from the ground level. We need to teach undergraduates these subjects, and they need to be taught on. We all need to be tech savvy nowadays. If you don't know how to you put your signature digitally, you may not be able to survive in another 5 to 10 years. So as Boss Vasantha said, I think we need to restructure the organizations. So that should be the first step.
I mean, what I have observed is that, for example, so I mentioned earlier that in many countries, I think including Sri Lanka and Philippines and other countries in the region, unless the document has to be notarized, it is really fully legal to use digital signature or electronic signature. Even both are enough. Similar to like we used to be able to just sign and send it by fax. So the fact that the banks now are asking us to sign physically, when 5 years ago they were okay to get a fax from us, is a kind of a step back, right? But what I have seen is that it's the what can I want to use the the person who's holding back the transformation is very often the legal department of those organizations. They are not fully sure that if they would go to court, that this could really be upheld in court, and therefore they advise their organizations, don't accept it legally, digitally. You have to accept only hand-signed documents, like in a bank, for example, right?
So, yeah, Lars, so I think, you just specifically mentioned notary, right? So the notary's role, I think we need to also go back. We can sign something. I can sign a document. I can send it to you, and you can, as long as you accept that one, that is between you and me, that's fine. But notarized documents are actually, there's a third party who is witnessing that we are signing. Okay, so the digital signatures are actually doing this part of the notarization digitally. So the role of notary may change soon, unless they start adapting this, the notarization workflow, where they also could be part of that authentication at the end. So there are two things. Remember that we were discussing before. I think not in this session. There are two things: digital signature and digital sealing. So the digital sealing is the notary role of the notary. So you seal the envelope saying, okay, these guys who signed, or these people who signed this document, they are valid, and I'm just sealing this document. So I think we have this subject is you can go a little further and maybe have another session. But today, there are multiple ways of doing this, by just the digital signing between two parties, or maybe multiple parties can sign and that can be sealed the envelope, to do a function like a notarizing it digitally.
Okay.
Did I confuse you enough?
I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure, you might have confused somebody else, but I think there's, as you said, many things you can dig into this, and there's also a lot of stuff you can read. I think we are in the process of doing a white paper. So Telini and our marketing team is working together to do a white paper that we can share, and I'm not sure if it's going to be available by the time that we are going to publish this podcast. If it's going to be available, then I'm sure that the team will put a link in the podcast to download the white paper. The other things I wanted to just conclude by saying is that we have, so Enadoc Sign is available. I mean, there are many products in the market, but Enadoc Sign is built into Enadoc. So if you are already a client using Enadoc, you have Enadoc Sign for free. So at least you can start to work on how to implement that in your organization. What is the legal framework around that in your industry and in your country? And then we are rolling out a new product called Enadoc EVIA Sign, which would be available probably from around July, where we are going to have a free version of that allows people to sign documents up to a number of documents per month before they have to pay for that. So it allows people to send documents to third party outside your organization and have a lot of other cool features that we can talk about another time. But this is definitely a market and an area of great interest to us. And it was interesting to hear this question about what if anything good came out of the pandemic. And this was something good that came out of the pandemic. And also, we have our first full-time legal lawyer working for us during the pandemic. So welcome to Tech One Global, even though you have been with us for some time now, but you are still a pandemic employee, I think. And it's good to have you on board, and great to have you on this podcast and get your insight into this. So thank you very much, Telini and Wasantha. And I sound like a radio host. Actually, I'm not the host, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lassie. Yeah, you sound exactly. I was about to say that.
So maybe I can retire one day and start my own radio show.
Your own FM
Okay,
channel.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you, Telini.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast, and be sure to subscribe to get the latest updates. Let's talk again soon.